The Wagner Act's impact on workers' rights. The Wagner Act was adopted in 1935 and was one of the most important labor acts that were passed during the 20th century. The act was the product of the effort of Senator Robert Ferdinand Wagner, who believed that lower-income groups should be provided with economic security and safety. He was the main promoter of the law, and that is why the National Labor Relations Act is called in honor of him. Passed in 1935, the act gave the majority of employees in the private sector the right to join labor unions and organizations. Thus, the workers got an opportunity to collectively present their interests and express their opinions. The Wagner Act remained a major piece of labor legislation in the United States for more than 10 years, and the impact it had on the workers' relationships with each other and the employers was great. The employees had the chance to make their voices heard and collectively resolve work-related issues with the help of the National Labor Relations Board, which primarily consisted of 3 members. Later its number was extended to 5 and ensured the legitimacy of the requirements labor unions made to the employers. However, the Wagner Act influenced the rights of workers not in all sectors, as the agricultural and domestic workers could not organize collectively or join labor unions. The Act, however, not only let the workers organize unions and alliances but also protected them from unfair labor practices that employers often launched. The law prohibited them from firing the workers without fair reasons or discriminating against them by any characteristic. The law was quite often criticized since it considered mostly the rights of the workers but not those of the employer. However, in the 1930s the lower-income workers were among the most unprotected society groups that had neither economic security nor legal protection. That is why the law was so welcomed by the workers and acknowledged as legitimate by the U.S. Supreme Court. The adoption of the Wagner Act was an important event in American history because it was among the first ones in the field of workers' rights protection, so it created the legal base for further laws. Apart from that, the Act improved the relations between workers and employers and prevented the latter from economic or labor violence towards the former. In addition, the more tense cooperation of employers and employees helped the workers participate more in the decision-making procedures in the factories where they worked. Thus, it was hard for the employers to make important decisions without informing the labor union. The Wagner Act was the major law that regulated the relationships between workers and employers for 12 years, till 1947, when the Labor Management Relations Act was adopted. Its influence was significantly weakened by the new law since it restricted the workers' rights and freedoms. For instance, the number and definition of unfair practices were narrowed, or the arrangement making union membership a compulsory condition for further employment was prohibited. However, despite new restrictions and other amendments that followed, the Wagner Act significantly influenced the labor legislation in the United States because it gave the workers the right to organize and protected them from economic instability.